Hey everyone, of all the things I've debunked, I have yet to tackle technology-based conspiracies. Well, it's time to add that to the list, because today we're going to address a pointless 2-bit grifter named Ashton Forbes. Who is he, and what kind of bullshit does he push? Let's find out. Ashton Forbes is a self-declared journalist. Of course, he's not really a journalist, that's just what idiot frauds call themselves to sound more legitimate, when all they really do is spew lies all over the internet. He's a journalist the way Graham Hancock is a journalist. In fact, Ashton is the physics twin of Graham Hancock, but instead of going up against big archaeology, Ashton pretends he's battling the government, or mainstream physics, or whatever, it doesn't matter. He's just a brave whistleblower fighting against the establishment. Please like and subscribe. Ashton is best known for claiming that enormous advances in physics and related crazy sci-fi technology are being hidden by the government from the public, and even from top physicists in academia. Of course, he also says that all the information anyone needs to uncover these hidden death rays, zero-point energy modules, and anal probes is out there in the public domain, so anyone can play Fox Mulder pretend times and figure it all out. This anyone obviously includes all the terminally online delusional toddlers who follow him, having zero knowledge of basic physics or any understanding of the words he uses, which is fitting since Ashton has no idea what he's saying either. If all this sounds like a contradiction, you're not alone. Everything Ashton spills the beans on is top secret, but it's also out there in plain sight. The government pays billions of dollars to keep this stuff quiet, but also gives press conferences where they casually admit everything, and they even use it openly to vanish entire commercial aircraft and dozens of civilians, all to prevent China from getting our Star Trek tech, to presumably reverse engineer it into better iPhones or something. But the most pathetic aspect of Ashton's rise to dubious YouTube prominence is that it was a direct result of him leveraging a terrible human tragedy, the loss of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, the long search for the plane's debris, and an explanation for the crash. When the plane vanished, conspiracy theorists rushed into the vacuum of uncertainty, and Ashton was one of the loudest voices. He used the tragedy to claim that the government has the technology to create negative energy plasma orbs, which manipulate space-time to create wormholes. They can also make warp drives by adjusting the energy of the aether, a thing that was proven to not exist in the late 19th century. Fans of my Electric Universe debunks will be thrilled to hear that, according to Ashton, all of this tech is based on the moronic idea that gravity is actually a manifestation of electromagnetic energy, such that plasma orbs which are magnetically coupled can generate wormholes that swallow commercial planes and make them disappear. And finally, this tech is the key to extracting free energy from space, obviously, and Ashton has a machine that produces energy from nothing. He can't show it to you, but he'll sell you one for a solid price. Just trust him, bro. Anyway, we're going to comb through Ashton's recent appearance on the Jimmy Dore Show. If you don't know who that is, he's a brainless hack masquerading as a comedian with a dog-shit podcast where he just barks endless conspiratorial tripe. Ashton fits right in, vomiting his script of technical jargon to Jimmy's audience of easily impressed buffoons who can't tell that he has no idea what he's talking about. Ashton is trying really hard to rise through the ranks of internet grifters with these appearances, but he hasn't yet been invited on the holy grail of grifting platforms, the Joe Rogan Experience. This makes Ashton very mad every day, and with good reason, since there are other idiot grifters no better than him who have been on the show. But for now, we will have to settle for Ashton and Jimmy.
We seem to have lost focus and vision, to have lowered our sights and let systems and structures and bureaucracies muddle us along. But we are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space.
Whoa.
They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow and improve productivity.
So now that sounds to me like he's saying we developed some kind of technologies in the 70s, and then the powers that be tried to rein that in and slow it down for whatever reason. Is that what it sounds like to you?
I mean, that's what he's explicitly saying. You know, the people that are trying to, paint it in a different light, I think that they're the ones who have to stretch. And for me, when I hear 1970s, I think of the Mansfield Amendment. The Mansfield Amendment is actually when gravity research had to go private, because in the 70s, the military was spending all this money on research that wasn't considered to be military. So it became this political issue, kind of like with USAID, where like they were thinking it was, being used inappropriately. And so gravity research wasn't considered to have, direct combat purpose. And so it kind of potentially got hidden in defense contractors at that point.
The level of confusion you are experiencing will be constant throughout this video. Nothing Ashton says ever makes an ounce of sense, even if you're dumb enough to believe the lies he tells. He is pretending that gravity research had to go private. This is meaningless. Gravity is a topic in physics, and physicists are the ones studying physics, which is done primarily at universities, not at fucking Lockheed Martin. Gravity doesn't have direct combat purpose. Well, knowing how gravity works is pretty important for knowing how to fly planes and drop bombs and all that other war shit, and luckily for war people, we figured all that out a few centuries ago. Nowadays, gravity research means expanding our understanding of general relativity or attempting to develop quantum gravity or some similar construct. These are things that are done in universities. Most of the people who fall for a jerk like Ashton are probably also obsessed with Eric Weinstein, who is constantly whining about how everyone should stop working on quantum gravity because it's sucking up all the funding. So this is just a big bowl of stupid no matter how you slice it. To get more specific, since 1915, academia has never stopped working on our understanding of gravity. A bit after general relativity was published, in the 1930s, Eddington and Lemaitre and Chandrasekhar made important advances that helped us understand strong gravity. In the 1950s, David Finkelstein came up with the concept of an event horizon. In 1967, we discovered neutron stars. In the 1970s, Hawking and others figured out how black holes might radiate. Also in the 1970s, astrophysicists discovered a black hole orbiting a blue supergiant and a supermassive black hole at the center of a galaxy. In the 2010s, scientists were able to pick up ripples in spacetime called gravitational waves. A few years ago, we took a picture of a black hole. Today, people like Ed Witten and Juan Maldacena are working to understand quantum gravity. But Ashton wants you to believe that Lockheed Martin has physicists who have moved far beyond Witten and Maldacena, and these supreme geniuses have it all figured out. Of course, in doing so, they haven't published any papers, they've dodged the 10 Nobel Prizes they deserve, and have kept it all quiet in exchange for billions of dollars. Does he have any evidence for this? No. The lack of evidence is all the evidence he needs, because he thinks it proves there's a cover-up. Even delusional contrarian Elon Musk doesn't buy this crap. He's pointed out that if Lockheed had advanced tech, they would use it to compete with SpaceX, whose launch contracts are worth billions of dollars. But Ashton has a response for that too. Ashton says the secrecy is the proof.
You know, and when Elon Musk was asked about this kind of stuff on Joe Rogan, he went like full retard on any time electrogravitics is brought up. He says, "Oh, I have a class of a clearance. I would know if they have this type of stuff." That's not how that works. And then he says, "Oh, well, Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, I would know if they're hiding some advanced technology. They would compete with me in SpaceX." No, the whole point of secret technology that's beyond the paradigm is that you don't show it publicly. Why do they not, break it out? Because they don't need to, because they're getting paid billions of dollars by the government not to.
Right, so the government, which already has hyper-advanced propulsion and teleportation tech that they are spending billions keeping Lockheed Martin from using or talking about publicly, is also paying billions to SpaceX in order to develop far inferior launch vehicles based on chemical rockets. And the government keeps it a secret, but also announces it openly. Nothing wrong with that logic. Where did he get this shit again?
Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space.
Whoa.
Whoa, indeed, Jimmy. Don't consider the possibility that it's just a metaphor or turn of phrase, that he's talking about communications or something innocuous. Just jump to the baseless conclusion that this guy is openly admitting to the government having crazy futuristic technology that they spend billions of dollars to keep secret. This is like when flat earthers pretend that NASA means to deceive. They spend a gazillion dollars to hide the truth, but then also just openly tell us the truth. Airtight, morons. Okay, it's time for some actual physics, but first, let me tell you about today's sponsor. As you know, I do a good amount of debunking, which amounts to poking a lot of different internet beehives. Anti-vaxxers, transphobes, pseudo-archaeology cult members, and now all the rabid idiots that worship Ashton Forbes. There are many groups of people that despise me, and some of them send me personal threats. Arson threats, I'm gonna find you and beat you up threats, I'm gonna hurt your kids threats, the whole kit and caboodle, on top of the obvious spam emails and phone calls. For this reason, I have to minimize the number of these jerks that get my personal information, which is way easier to find on the internet than you would think. That's why I use Incogni. Incogni scours the internet for data brokers who collect and trade your personal information without you knowing. Finding them all and demanding your privacy would take forever, if they even comply, so why not let the professionals do it for you? Go to incogni.com/Professor Dave and use code Professor Dave to get an exclusive offer of 60% off. Incogni will find every last one of these data brokers and make sure that all your information, from your name, address, and phone number to social security number, medical data, and even shopping habits, remain completely private. The best part is that this activity is constant, so you can rest easy knowing that any new breaches that crop up will be dealt with swiftly and efficiently. And you can keep track of all this progress in your own personalized dashboard, which tells you the number of hits and how many they've been able to remove. Be sure to also check out Incogni's new Unlimited and Family Unlimited plans as well. These allow you to submit an unlimited number of specific links for immediate removal, for a level of protection beyond the standard plan. So don't wait another minute. Go to incogni.com/Professor Dave and use code Professor Dave to get a whopping 60% off. That's incogni.com/Professor Dave, or click on the link in the description to take your personal data off the market. Now back to the debunking.
I remember when I first got interested in all this stuff is when I realized that what Einstein said was that space and time were the same thing, which is still hard to wrap my mind around, but that if you move through space fast enough that you could stop time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and he's talking about E=mc².
No, space and time are not the same. They are two aspects of one thing called space-time. And no, moving so fast that you stop time is not about E=mc². It's derived from the time dilation equation, whereby if you were to somehow go the speed of light, which is impossible for any massive object, other observers would see your clocks frozen in time.
And this is what I would add on to that. And I'm here to help prove Einstein correct. Einstein's the one that theorized gravitational waves and ripples. Ripples in what? Space is not actually empty. That's the only thing that we have to realize. And it doesn't require rewriting any laws of physics. It just requires a conceptual viewpoint change.
Physicists don't need your help to prove Einstein correct, sweetie. That's already happened countless times. Ripples in what? In space-time. And gravitational waves were indeed detected by actual physicists in 2015. You're not even qualified to get their coffee. And then, of course, this whole space is not empty revelation is just referring to the quantum foam that fills space-time on the smallest scales, and that was first postulated by John Wheeler in 1955. We've got this covered, Ash. I would tell you to relax, but it's time for you to start really cranking out the high-octane stupid now.
The universe is electric. What unifies the very small things and the very large things is electric charge, positive and minus.
Yes, much like idiot flat earthers or Terrence Howard, Ashton found some Thunderbolts project videos on the internet and is presenting their bullshit as his own. No, Ash, the universe is not electric. That doesn't mean anything. Electric charge isn't uniting anything on the largest scales. Bulk matter is electrically neutral. Furthermore, the electromagnetic force is both attractive and repulsive, while gravity is only attractive. That's why the latter dictates the structure and behavior of the universe when you zoom out a bit. Frauds like Ashton have rehearsed objections to this obvious fact, of course. Electromagnetism shapes the cosmos, not gravity, which is dumb and wrong for the reasons I explained earlier, and also in profoundly greater detail in my handful of electric universe debunks. To give a highlights reel, they spew horseshit about electric currents and magnetic fields powering all the galaxies, even though this already baseless approach falls apart completely when looking at elliptical galaxies rather than spiral galaxies. Nothing they say does anything whatsoever to explain what we know about cosmology, such as the cosmic microwave background radiation. It contradicts everything we know about how stars work, how elements form, and posits insane bullshit like comets being electrically charged, when in fact we've landed a probe on a comet and know exactly what they are made of. My Wall Thornhill debunk goes into this stuff in way more detail, so head over there if you're interested. Now back to making fun of Ashton.
It's actually that simple. The speed of light actually isn't constant. It just appears constant because we're in this fish tank we call space-time. And while we're in that space-time, the speed of light, the refractive index of that medium is the same. So it just appears like it's a static constant. But we can actually change that refractive index, optics.
Holy hell, that's a lot of stupid. Space-time doesn't have a refractive index. That doesn't mean anything. He's resurrecting crap from 150 years ago. Before relativity, people wondered, if light is a wave, what is doing the waving? Sound is waves in air. Ocean waves are made of water. What is the medium of light? The most popular theory was the ether, the idea that space was filled with something invisible and light was just wiggles in that ether. But experiments to discover the ether, like the famous Michelson-Morley experiment of 1887, which tried to measure our speed through the ether by measuring the velocity of light in two directions as the Earth went around the sun, found nothing. No ether. Light always has the same speed in a vacuum, and this is one of the fundamental constants of the universe. This is one of the two postulates of special relativity, which has been corroborated countless times. This speed is constant because light, or electromagnetic radiation, is the oscillation of the electromagnetic field, which is part of space itself. It doesn't require an ether to propagate. Going 150 years into the past to promote ancient obsolete viewpoints as novel insight is just par for the course with grifting frauds who are incapable of writing their own script from scratch. Is the electromagnetic field being a part of space just another way of labeling the ether? No, it's fundamentally different because the electromagnetic field is not something you can measure your velocity relative to. It's not a thing in space the way water fills a fish tank. Fish can measure their speed relative to the water, so a hypothetical scientist fish could discover the existence of water by seeing that sound travels at different speeds relative to you, if you are moving fast or slow in the water. The ether is not water in space. Light always has the same speed regardless of your velocity because space is not a thing like water. You can't measure your speed relative to it the way you would be able to with an ether. So the idea that space is filled with an ether that has an index of refraction is moronic. If you fill space with something and shine light through it, like water or glass or air, it will slow down the light because the light now has to interact with particles in that substance, getting absorbed and re-emitted in slightly different directions and with a minuscule delay each time, in a way that depends on the composition and density of that particular substance. That's just optics. But there is no ether changing the motion of light in space, or we would have detected it both 150 years ago and today.
And ultimately what this means is we open the door to teleportation, otherwise known as Miguel Alcubierre's warp drive metric, which is pretty much the same as what you would see in Star Trek in terms of their warp drive.
Yeah, misrepresenting something a government official said means Star Trek is real. How does this moron have followers? If we want to be as charitable as humanly possible, general relativity does allow for wormholes, which could be construed as warp travel, but that's actual science, which includes quantitative calculations that tell us how much energy would be required to be able to do that, and it's basically the mass energy equivalent of an entire star. I don't see any stars being converted to energy, so that shit ain't happening, and it wouldn't be teleportation anyway. Beyond the sheer scale involved, both warp drives and wormholes would require matter with negative energy density, and absolutely nobody has any idea how to do that, not even Ashton's fictional government supergeniuses.
So you're saying that human beings today possess Star Trek technology?
Yeah, somebody on this planet does. My guess would be that Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, that there is a breakaway civilization of people on this planet. I would go so far as to say that the whole UFO phenomenon and the culture around the UFO stuff is basically just a throw off the scent, that we have figured out extremely advanced technology beyond the paradigm.
The only nugget worth entertaining here is that the UAP crap was manufactured to distract people, but it sure as hell wouldn't be to hide any warp drives or some other crap like that. This is pure tinfoil hattery. But let's see if he can muster up some specific claims about this hidden technology and what sorts of phenomena it would rely on.
That we have basically figured out space and time is not empty, and that if there is this latent energy, this 0 point energy that's out there, that we can use it to tap into for energy, produce fusion the way that it's meant to be done, manipulating gravity, that we can produce a warp drive, which would be just like a conveyor belt where you're manipulating the medium, like how a submarine floats through the water. And then if you take that to its extreme, take Einstein's equations to their extreme, just like Miguel Alcubierre did, you can actually create a shortcut between space and time. You know, just like in the movies where they say, okay, you know, take your paper and fold it in half and then puncture a hole right through it.
Well, that was disappointing. Again, we've known about things like the quantum foam and zero-point energy since decades before Ashton was born. He just memorized some buzzwords to make it sound like he's presenting some revolutionary information when it's just stuff you're supposed to learn as a physics undergrad. The Casimir effect, quantum fluctuations, this is freshman year stuff. Ashton doesn't know what it is, he doesn't know what it does, he doesn't know how much of it there is, and he sure as fuck has no idea what would be required to harness it and what could be done with it. What else can we say about the zero-point energy? Well, for one, it's the title of a dope song I made a while back. Check it out.
It's just the 0-point energy, the fluctuating sound of energy.
Sorry, I have to drop a plug when the opportunity arises. Simulated Sun is linked in my featured channels list. But back to the science, let's also talk with more detail about this concept, since Ashton never shuts up about it. We know that space is a writhing maelstrom of fundamental quantum fields, one for each fundamental particle. These fields can vibrate, changing their kinetic and potential energies. Ripples in these fields are the particles we know and love. You and your lunch are made of ripples and fields. The bottom line is that the vacuum of space contains energy. What happens if you pull all the particles out of a chunk of space? Do the fields go quiet? No, because they are quantum fields. They cannot relax to zero. Their minimum energy configuration, what physicists call the vacuum state, has non-zero energy. This is the ground state energy, or zero-point energy. Some fields have more than others, like how the Higgs field is stuck in a state of higher potential energy, which is why it gives mass to the other particles that interact with it. So space is filled with energy. It's always there. It's an intrinsic property of space. That's true. Do we completely understand every aspect about the vacuum? No, we do not, and lots of the smartest people on the planet are working hard to figure it out. For example, one big mystery is whether the energy in the vacuum is causing the accelerating expansion of the universe. We discovered 100 years ago that galaxies are all moving away from us, meaning that space is growing between us and other galaxies. And we discovered 25 years ago that this expansion is accelerating. What can cause that? Relativity says that if space is filled with potential energy, it can cause this kind of repulsion, which we have labeled somewhat whimsically dark energy. But we can't say that the zero-point energy is definitively the cause of the accelerating expansion. Dark energy is still very much a mystery. Can you extract this energy from space? Use it to charge your iPhone or power your airplane, kidnapping plasma balls? No, we're already in the lowest energy state. The only reason it's not zero is because of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Particles and fields have to keep a small amount of quantum jiggle, otherwise they would be stationary and we would simultaneously know both their position and momentum at the same time. This is forbidden in quantum mechanics, since particles are also waves which can't have precise positions and momenta simultaneously. But what about the Casimir effect we mentioned? What is that, and does that prove there's energy in space? If you put two super thin, electrically neutral metal plates right near each other, you measure a small attractive force. This is called the Casimir effect. What's happening? Having two metal plates there changes how the fields behave, the way putting an electron in a box changes its energy levels. Here, the ZPE between the plates is different from the ZPE outside the plates, which creates an attraction between the plates. It's not pulling energy from the vacuum, it's changing the vacuum. Does that mean it's totally impossible to ever get energy from the vacuum? Could some super crack team of secret government physicists have figured out a better theory than the quantum field theory that correctly predicts the results of ultra-precise experiments at $10 billion hadron colliders? Oh, while also keeping it a complete secret? I'm gonna go with no. Also, ZPE has nothing to do with fusion. When he says we can use it to do fusion the way it was meant to be done with gravity, that's totally meaningless. We are doing fusion right now, and we're doing it with magnetic containment to control plasma. That's what a tokamak is. And this moron is the one pretending gravity is electromagnetism, so who knows what the shit he's even really trying to say. Really, the only parallel would be that he is pretending we figured out cold fusion, and the government is suppressing that too. So it's just another totally separate line of complete bullshit. This is the angle he takes on Twitter. Take a look at this tweet. I had a call today with top scientists. Were you taking their lunch order, Ashton? Nobody is doing cold fusion, and he's pretending plasma is some super cool buzzword when that's just how we actually do fusion. These types of tweets are just him cosplaying as a scientist in order to sell a story. They invited me to Portugal, you guys. These super awesome imaginary scientists totally need my help to keep inventing this imaginary thing. Isn't that awesome? Total Eric Weinstein vibes minus the legitimate math knowledge.
The big lie that you're going to hear from academia is that oh, negative energy is this exotic thing that doesn't exist. Don't think about it. Like, yes, all the math says it should exist, but don't think about it. No, it turns out the only thing is that now we realize we're in this medium of energy. We realize what we think of as zero is the bottom. It's not really the bottom. We're just sitting on top of this ocean of energy. We're sitting on top of it. And that means, oh, there's this ocean of energy that can be tapped into.
More bullshit. Don't think about it. Thousands of people are being paid to think about that and thousands of related things right now. Academia simply says that exotic matter with negative energy density has never been observed because it hasn't. If Ashton knows how to make it, he should just do it and win a Nobel Prize. It's so easy, right? Then get to work, moron. As far as tapping into this ocean of energy, once again, just no. He's probably referencing Dirac's sea of particles. When Dirac was thinking about the quantum mechanics of an electron, he noticed that the Schrödinger equation also had solutions with negative energy. That was odd because nobody had seen negative energy states. And the universe likes to relax to lower energy, so Dirac wondered why electrons don't just emit photons forever, sinking into infinitely negative energies. Electrons in the universe don't do that. If you leave an electron alone, it just sits there. It doesn't spray photons and gather some weird mystical negative energy. So Dirac suggested that maybe those negative energy states are already filled up, blocking the electron due to the Pauli exclusion principle, which says that two electrons in a system cannot be in the same state. And he noticed that if one of the negative energy states were open, it would react oppositely to electric fields, the same way a positively charged electron would. Thus, the positron was hypothesized. But that doesn't mean there is a sea of negative energy positrons all around us. It was just a problem with thinking about it in terms of individual particles, the way Schrödinger had. His equation is great for understanding a single particle, but it can't naturally handle creating and destroying particles. Quantum field theory is a generalization of early quantum mechanics, which says that you shouldn't focus on a single particle the way Schrödinger did, but think of particles as energy levels of a field. If the field goes up in energy, that's another particle. So now it's easy to think about creating and destroying particles as the field wiggles with more or less energy. With the advent of quantum field theory, we understood that electrons and positrons were just two different ways a single field could wiggle, and that field naturally has a ground state of close to zero energy. There are no negative energy solutions. Electrons and positrons both have positive energy. We know that since we've seen positrons and measured their positive energy, both from cosmic rays and particle accelerators. That's one thing that's useful about those expensive particle accelerators that some people whine about.
What you're saying is that that White House spokesperson kind of let the cat out of the bag and letting us know that we have Star Trek technology. We can manipulate space-time and possibly we could teleport like they do in Star Trek.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that wasn't letting the cat out of the bag. That was definitely an intentional release. See, that doesn't get written up that way without the intention of, they knew people were going to react to it that way.
Again, this is below toddler logic. When people spend billions of dollars to keep something secret, they don't just willingly share the secret in front of microphones and cameras. Anyone who buys this is a complete moron. Corporations with awesome tech will make money with their tech. This is capitalism 101.
I'm not just saying that we have it. Like, I'm showing it in the videos of what happened on Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Someday people will accept that that's what we did to the plane. And I'm also digging into the scientific papers and the patents, talking to the engineers, like Navy engineer Salvatore Pais. Actually, somebody just texted me earlier and said that Joe Rogan just apparently on Instagram posted a thing about his patents. The guy's 100% legit. He just got like UFO patents that explain these plasma orbs and everything. And the world just hasn't quite caught up to it yet.
Yeah, where are all the videos demonstrating these super cool negative energy plasma orbs bending space-time made by these super legit secret scientists? Oh, you don't have any? Gee, that's a shame, since that's kind of the only thing that would convince any rational person that they exist. Bragging about your imaginary friends doesn't really go too far with that.
So I call myself a 0-point energy influencer. because I realized I don't even need to prove the science or the physics. It's all out there. The papers are out there.
This dumbass is contradicting himself every time he opens his mouth. You don't need to prove what you're saying because the physics is out there, the papers are out there. What papers? There are no papers talking about the Star Trek fan fiction you're spewing, and you've repeatedly said that it's all super secret government stuff. Is it secret or not, moron? If it's a secret, then stop pretending all those papers you've never read support the dumb shit you say. If it's not a secret and all the papers are there, where are all the Nobel Prizes for this revolutionary science you're pretending exists? I hope your idiot followers think it's your glasses that make you seem smart, because it sure as shit isn't your words.
I don't need to build anything. People have been building free energy devices and stuff like that, getting discredited for decades.
Yes, people have totally built the imaginary impossible thing you're referencing, so there's no need for you to do it. That's not a cop-out at all. This moron couldn't build a potato battery for a middle school science fair, so it's a good thing he doesn't have to build anything to sell this grift. Although he did try and totally humiliated himself on his own live stream. More on that a little later.
We just need to wake people up that all the same bullshit that we're getting fed in the media, all the same corruption in the government, that's happening in academia as well. And it's not just medicine, like with all the COVID bullshit that we dealt with. It's happening in like physics and science.
Wow, in physics and science? No way. This jackass doesn't know that physics is a subset of science. And yeah, all that COVID bullshit. Hey you, have you been brainwashed by propaganda from frauds about COVID stuff? Then I have some other crap you're gonna love.
The defense contractors have been stealing all the best scientists and engineers, mostly engineers, and it's left this brain drain in academia where all we have left are the normie NPC thinker type people.
Yeah, all those normie NPCs, all those brainless jerks at Caltech and MIT doing all that actual real science you don't stand a shot in hell at understanding. Ashton, you couldn't pass a high school physics quiz, so referring to the top minds in physics as NPCs just makes you look like the most delusional toolbox on the planet.
You know, the establishment is very good at finding people who stay inside the lines. It's journalism is full of them, right? And so is medicine. And now you're saying so is physics. Well, the same thing happened to me with the Syrian gas attacks. The same thing happened with the Ukraine war. And then, of course, COVID, right? So I've had people who knew me all my life completely disown me and smear me and slander me in the most despicable ways, and in public and on social media, and everything I said turned out to be 100% correct.
Nothing you say is ever correct, Jimmy. We don't have time to give you the full treatment since this video's about Ashton, but what you call staying inside the lines is just people who know what they're talking about, rather than assholes like you who propagate lies to make money on the internet. Drop the victim complex.
And so now, there's a long way to get to now. Have you experienced that?
Well, I was going to say, that's why I wanted to talk to you to some degree, because I thought you might be able to relate to that. And yeah, of course I have. Nobody mainstream has ever brought up the topic, ever mentioned my name. In the UFO community, which is where this gained prominence, none of the top people will ever mention me, never have. Many of them probably get asked about me all the time, about the videos. Only a small number have. It's like they're afraid to even talk about the videos, talk about me.
Aw, Ashton is a little butthurt that other conspiracy peddlers don't care about him. How adorable. Of course, what's most hilarious is that he's contradicting himself yet again. All of these concepts are never uttered in the mainstream, except that everything he says is directly derived from standard academic physics. Zero-point energy, space-time, even the obsolete concepts like the ether, it's all derived from academia. He just repackages it for people who have never studied any science and pretends it's all novel insights.
There's at least a story out there from the late 1890s or 1880s where a guy was supposedly arrested because he was trying to sell phones, house phones, street on the door to door, and the people thought he was trying to scam people because they thought there's no way you can actually transmit voice via wires. And then when the Wright brothers were flying airplanes around, physicists said that it was impossible, that it was fake, even when they had pictures of it and videos, because they could do video back then, like just simple stuff. then they would come around and be like, okay, yeah, but it'll never be commercialized. Okay, now you've proven us wrong that you can actually fly, but it'll never be commercialized.
Wow, 2 examples of somebody being wrong about something, which may or may not have happened. Therefore, anyone can make up any bullshit and it must be true. Straight from the Grifter playbook.
Elon Musk tweeted out a picture of the Wright brothers and then a picture of the astronauts planting the flag on the moon. And he said that was 66 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're, I don't know, how many years, we're what are we, 50, 60 years since then? And we haven't advanced in tech. We're still using jet engines. We haven't really been back to the moon. We haven't done anything. Really, we're still using jet engine. We haven't. So in the next 60 years, we haven't progressed at all. So we went from the Wright brothers to on the moon in 60 years. But since then to now, it's almost exactly the same in our travel and transportation.
Yeah, is that true though, Jimmy? Even just with space travel, does everything look exactly the same? Do the vehicles look the same? Have we sent probes to tons of other celestial bodies much farther than the moon, or no? Then look at other forms of transportation. Did we have electric vehicles in the 1960s? Did we have autonomous vehicles? Did we have high-speed maglev trains? Of course we didn't, so you're wrong. What you're trying to say is that we still use combustion in rocketry. Yeah, so what? Did you want to put a fusion reactor on a rocket? We've achieved fusion in reactors on the ground, so it's not completely far-fetched. What else? Matter-antimatter annihilation? Solar sails? All of this tech has been conceived of, so it's not an intellectual limitation. If you want to come up with a few $1 billion and get to work on it, nobody is fucking stopping you.
People out there, do you really think that like our cars are becoming less fuel efficient, not more fuel efficient? Energy and propulsion are the only things not getting more advanced.
Another gem of stupidity from Ashton. A number of advancements in engines and fuel injection systems have resulted in significantly improved fuel economy. Cars get around twice as many miles to the gallon as they did in 1975. Also, once again, we have electric cars now too. As for energy, did we have working fusion reactors in the 70s? No. Do we have them now? Yes. So what the shit are you talking about?
The SR-71 had hypersonic flight. They used a plasma sheath in front of it so that it could bypass the friction of being able to move that fast. This was when they probably first figured out that plasma has these weird properties where somehow it's just like doing something to space-time that is bypassing inertia. It's reducing inertia.
More high-octane stupid. Plasma is bypassing inertia. Inertia is the property of objects to resist acceleration, and it is dependent on mass. Plasma has mass, just like the other states of matter. Force is required to accelerate any massive object. There's nothing about general relativity and the bending of spacetime that contradicts this basic fact, since in the context of relativity, gravity is not a force and thus does not provide acceleration.
And they started to incorporate electrogravitics into the craft, which is the idea that positive and minus charge can, cancel inertia, provide lift, do things that we would consider to be anti-gravitational.
He just gets dumber and dumber every time he speaks. Plus and minus can cancel inertia? That's word salad. Protons, neutrons, and electrons are all subject to gravity in the same way because of their mass. Just like I told the electric universe morons, and just like I tell the flat earth morons, if acceleration due to gravity had anything to do with electric charge, you could demonstrate it by dropping objects of differing charge. And if it was that easy to generate anti-gravity, we'd all be floating everywhere. Anyone who spews this crap is next level stupid.
Just turn the plasma sheath, which is the thing doing all the work, bypassing the inertia, floating around, turn that into a drone. Put a communication device inside of there and just float your plasma ball around. And Ken Shoulders in the 1980s, he was like the father of microelectronics, realized that he could make these cold, non-equilibrium plasmas, he called them. He could make them coherent into shapes, like where it would become spherical and be stabilized. And he wondered where that energy would come from. So he called them exotic vacuum objects because he believed this ball of plasma that was just floating there must be pulling energy from the vacuum somehow. Otherwise, it should dissipate or how else does it find this unusual stable form?
Yes, an engineer named Ken Shoulders became a physics crackpot and made some ridiculous claims about exotic vacuum objects. Nobody has ever made anything like what you're describing. There is no unusual stable form because it does not exist. Stop pretending otherwise.
That there's these balls that are plasma balls that are circling the plane, and you're saying that they were able to open up a wormhole. They have the technology to do that and suck the plane into this wormhole. And so I'll play this, and you tell me if what we're looking at. So,
so this is the slow-mo of the zap from the drone video. And in this slow-mo, you can really see the heat signature of those orbs extremely clearly. And you're seeing it. They've figured out how to basically make a ball of plasma into a large macroscopic atom. So each of those orbs is basically like acting like an atom would, with a positively charged center, which is the blue part that we see, and then a negatively charged shell that is, in this case, bending towards one side of the orb. That's the green part that you see there.
okay.
And the reason that green part's going to be moving around the orb based on the magnetic field, the combined magnetic field that these orbs are creating around the plane.
Hey, if I say magnetic field enough times, will you believe this crap? It's just embarrassing that Ashton is still parading around this obviously fake video. Everything about it is such blatant VFX. It looks like a student project that got a B-, and it's been debunked 100 times by experts in video production. For Christ's sake, look at this joke of a wormhole portal thingy that's flashed for a couple frames. This is modified stock footage from the 90s. I'm not going to turn this into a lengthy technical debunking of hoax footage, since so many other people have done that, and I'll link to some of those in the description. But here's a quick snippet from a video by Mick West, which should sufficiently convince you that this video and another they will show later are definitely not real.
This portal effect was found by Redditor IcySlide7698 to be made using modified stock footage from the 1990s. It's impossible for all these curves along the edges to match by accident, and in comparisons between other frames we see the internal details match. We know the stock footage is that old because it was used in a 1995 game called Killing Time for a portal effect. The stock footage is also used in the fake satellite video as found by Redditor Happy Grammy, where an overexposed version of this frame matches the portal effect. That should be enough. But then we also have the stabilization issue, where if we stabilize the plane, then the contrails jump around. I've looked at thousands of videos of contrails, and they just don't do this. This must be a tracking and compositing error, and also shows that the video is fake. There are a bunch of other issues, like the supposed stereo version being the same image left and right, just with a manual distortion. There are issues with the frame rate. The drone footage seems to be using a 3D model. The satellite footage is static when we'd expect motion from parallax with the clouds, and several other things.
Everyone all good there? Now we can continue making fun of Ashton for pretending to understand physics. Remember, he was talking about plasma being a large macroscopic atom, which is total gibberish. You can't have a macroscopic atom, and atoms can't be plasma. Plasma is what you get when atoms are broken down into their constituent parts, usually due to high temperature. Plasma is inside stars and at the heart of fusion reactors like tokamaks. It requires enormous magnets to generate the forces to control that plasma. These are fake balls in a fake video. How are they generating a magnetic field?
And when they come together, those are extremely powerful balls of energy. So once their magnetic fields start to intertwine, just like if you were to look at the sun and look at those like huge magnetic fields that get created on the sun, they start to twist around and break. You're going to have the magnetic fields break and begin to reconnect.
Okay, so this moron doesn't even know what a magnetic field is. Those huge magnetic fields that get created on the sun, he's talking about solar plumes, which extend outward from coronal holes at the sun's poles. The poles of its magnetic field. The sun's one magnetic field. He thinks solar plumes are each individual magnetic fields. So he thinks magnetic fields can be made of plasma, and he thinks the sun has multiple magnetic fields. So he doesn't know what a magnetic field is.
And at some point when those orbs get too close together, you see this phase singularity, black hole, wormhole, whatever you want to call it. Turns out it all means the same thing.
No, a black hole and a wormhole are definitely not even remotely the same thing. A wormhole is a tunnel connecting 2 points in spacetime, and it is purely hypothetical. A black hole is a dead star, and it is not at all hypothetical. This is approaching Terrence Howard levels of cluelessness.
But what it means there is that they are actually changing the physical properties of not the plane, but the space-time around the plane. Change the physical properties of the space-time around the plane through this extremely powerful electromagnetic interaction in the region around the plane. And what this does is it changes the refractive index. And in the Einstein's equations, this is exactly what we need for negative energy.
In Einstein's equations, huh? Which ones would those be? And did you want to run us through the calculation? I'd settle for you demonstrating that you can do high school level calculus. I'd bet my life savings that you can't. Once again, spacetime doesn't have a refractive index. There's nothing to flip. There's no negative energy state here. There are no balls of plasma since this is a fake video, and making a ball of plasma does not create negative energy.
The atom, its ground state, remember we're sitting on top of this ocean of energy, it goes like this. So what this is we're gaining this amount of energy, but it's negative energy because it's going down.
Yeah, the 0-point energy has nothing to do with atoms and their ground state configuration. It's the energy associated with the vacuum of space. The vacuum of space is not atoms, dumbass. He's just saying random words that don't go together. Also, I love Jimmy just sitting there motionless, probably wondering when this guy will shut the fuck up and he can stop having to pretend he has any clue what's happening. Don't worry, Jimmy. This is a rare case where it's not just that you're stupid, he isn't actually saying anything.
So the space-time shrinks down, this plane just goes, and then somewhere else, the reason why my name is Ashton Forbes, or at least that's my brand, is because there's a fourth orb somewhere else where, poof, the plane comes out. And when the plane comes out on the other side, the total charge of the 3 orbs, imagine that they're, let's say, all positive, so 3 positive, are going to be perfectly balanced out by the 4th orb, which would be 3 negative charge total. And they'd be quantum entangled together so that when the plane appears, the orbs just all dissipate. They all cancel each other out.
Aw, what a cute little branding gimmick. You took your name and made up some bullshit to connect it to your grift. Quantum entanglement has absolutely nothing to do with anything you've said so far. We observe it in systems that are created with some kind of correlation, like 2 electrons with opposite spin, and they have to be isolated from absolutely everything else in order to preserve that entanglement, or they become entangled with everything they interact with. He's just evoking this concept because it has the word quantum in it, and all of his fans have read about it in every pop-sci article designed to convince uneducated narcissists that they've mastered frontier theoretical physics.
And that's a negative energy event. It's cold. So here's the physics that proves it. If you actually look into these negative energy events, what should happen is there should be a release of ultraviolet photons.
Any release of photons means a lot of energy. It doesn't mean negative energy. Lots of things in the universe emit UV photons, including our sun. To do that, it goes from large positive energy to less positive energy. UV photons do not equal negative energy. If I have 5 apples and give away 3 apples, I have 2 apples, not negative apples.
People say, why is there a flash in the satellite video?
So in this video, there's a flash.
You see that
right?
flash?
I see that flash.
It reflects
yes.
off the clouds. That's real light reflecting off real clouds. That's ultraviolet light.
Well, human eyes can't see ultraviolet light, so you really screwed yourself with that bullshit explanation, genius. And no, any attempt to evoke camera trickery, or filters, or reflections, or anything else is not going to change that. This is clearly visible light. Of course, he's just making up some ridiculous excuse to explain why the little wormhole explosion thingy looks completely different in the 2 hoax videos. The obvious explanation is that they are 2 different hoax videos that use 2 different stock videos for the effect, as we proved with the Mick West video. But Ashton fumbling high school level physics is a nice cherry on top.
So if the plane was already going to crash and was already on fire, why would they disappear it?
A shockingly logical question from Jimmy. Yes, if the big bad government wanted this plane gone, there's easier ways than creating wormholes.
Well, actually, if you go listen to a lot of the conspiracy interviews about this plane, which I've listened to everything there is about there, they said that this was like a message. This is some kind of message, you know. And so the idea here is that this is an op where China is stealing some semiconductor engineers, people that work on these advanced microchips for this U.S. company.
So there were people on this plane going to China that had some protected information about microchips or some kind of scientific information.
Yeah, the easiest thing to do would still be to make the plane crash. Killing people is a lot easier than teleporting them to another galaxy, guys.
You're saying that people who claim that these videos are fabricated and debunked, you're saying that these videos appeared 4 days after the plane disappeared. And that's a pretty compelling piece of evidence that these aren't fabricated, correct?
I mean, people can believe whatever the hell they want. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to tell you why they did this. I don't care. I'm not trying to tell you what it all means in the stake of the universe or whatever. I'm just telling you those videos are real. The United States government's the one who's responsible for MH370, and they have warp drive and wormhole technology.
I'm not telling you what to think, you guys. I'm just telling you that hoax videos are real and the government can do warp drives. Listen to how confident I am. That's how you know I'm not full of shit at all. What does Ashton do to anyone who tells him that these videos are fake? Block, block, block. Anyway, we could go on for hours with this, but we've covered enough to give you a solid picture of who this jerk is. He's nothing but a storyteller with some sci-fi buzzwords that he's rehearsed enough to convince people with zero education in physics that he knows what he's talking about. As I've shown you conclusively here, he absolutely doesn't. It's all just unearned grifter confidence and a direct line into the outsider's resentment of academia. I know the super secret truth, you guys, the one that the college clowns are too closed-minded to understand. You can know it too and be a super genius, much more geniusier than the stupid science people. Just like Graham Hancock, just like Terrence Howard, it's always the same. Anyway, let's move on to how Ashton plays with others. After developing a strong social media presence, some people started to debunk the dumb things he says. Predictably, Ashton uses this to pretend that the closed-minded establishment can't handle his super awesome truth, which is grifter street cred. But let's poke through some of his interactions with real physicists just for funsies. Here's a post from May 2024. Ether, free energy, crazy weapons. This guy tells him he's just taking random topics and making them sound conspiratorial. Oh yeah? Explain thing that we haven't figured out yet, and also explain trivial thing we figured out a super long time ago. Take that, jerkface. Well, running your mouth about dark matter can attract physicists who work on dark matter. In this case, Daniel Whiteson, particle physicist and professor at UC Irvine. He uses the LHC to search for dark matter, and he's no stranger to science communication. He tells Ashton that nobody knows what dark matter is, and what you said about the universe expanding faster than the speed of light was stupid. Ashton says, "Shut up, you book-smart academic dummy. Here's some bullshit about dark energy, a totally separate topic." Ashton thinks they're the same because they both have the word dark in them, which shows what a complete moron he really is. Ashton says, "Stop thinking about particles, bro. Think about waves. You know, like we've been doing for 120 years since wave-particle duality was developed. I'm hella deep, bro. Don't worry, you can get there, real physicist. It's not so hard." What a douchebag. Daniel reads the recommended Bearden paper and has a lot to say, like using basic logic to prove him wrong. If dark matter is electromagnetic energy, then that would change the mass of everything made of charged particles, like stars. But we see the effect of dark matter where there are no stars and planets. There's way too much physics in these responses, so Ashton just shits his pants and dismisses him. "You're wrong. I can't say how, but you just are, okay, stupid physics man? Because 2 + 2 isn't 5, so you're wrong." And that's the end. A real physicist was thorough and cordial, offered to help him understand these concepts, and Ashton just ignored him. Probably blocked him too. If you're an Ashton fan because fancy words impress you, who had the fancy words here? The physicist. Ashton suddenly gets real quiet when other people know what they're talking about. And what a surprise, he's mouthed off about me as well. Remember when I crapped all over Terrence Howard and some other jerk named Wiping You, who were taking turns spewing bullshit on the PBD podcast? Well, all my talk about Ashton's precious ether not existing triggered him something awful, based on his reply to this other moron. According to Ashton, anybody who understands basic physics must be a pedo. Probably a groomer, too. too. I wonder if he's a Daily Wire subscriber. Anyway, this is the part where we have to start asking ourselves, where's the grift? Conspiracy theories are great for amassing a social media following, but at some point a grifter has to cash in somehow, otherwise what's the point? Well, for Ashton, that would involve some hot products for sale. He is actively trying to sell people free energy machines that he claims tap into the quantum vacuum. On June 7th, 2024, he announced the formation of a company called Aether to distribute over unity devices, meaning machines that put out more power than they use, which means they have an output-input ratio greater than 1, or unity. He claimed to have already sold 30 devices that have been working for 3 years. Wow, so if this is true, it would change the world. Forget solar, forget wind, forget nuclear. This is tech that creates energy out of thin air. How much would this be worth? The solar industry was worth $250 billion in 2023. Wind is worth $100 billion. But Ashton's company can make energy without wind, the sun, or fissile materials. That's $1 trillion idea at least. But lucky you, he'll sell you one for the low price of 50 grand. You'd be stupid not to buy it. Of course, there is a catch. You have to sign an NDA. You know, because revealing this super secret tech would get him targeted by the ultra-advanced secret breakaway civilization and then disappeared into a wormhole just like MH370. Or, you know, maybe because it's a scam, one or the other. Now, even the people who are gullible enough to potentially buy this crap need something to sink their teeth into, some kind of a demonstration. So on June 13th, 2024, on a live stream, he promises a teaser taste of the device. He's going to show a picture of it to prove it's real. A picture, you guys. So he shows a picture, and live on stream, someone reverse image searches it and discovers that it's a picture of an older scam device by a discredited scam artist claiming to have produced an over unity device in 2010. 14 years prior. Ashton is trying to prove his device is real, but he is showing a picture of a 14-year-old device made by someone else.
This is not the demo model, just to be clear. This is an older model that was from over a year ago. I told you guys that this entity had produced these devices and produced over 30 of them. I was able to get an image of the meters from an older device. So, I don't know. Is Baker's Tut joking? I think he's probably joking. I hope you're joking, man. If people are gonna think that they're going to, are people really gonna try to push disinformation and claim that we took an old picture from somewhere else? It wouldn't surprise me if debunkers are that dishonest. Honestly, no. This image is not 14 years old. I guarantee you that. Well, you guys are right. This does look like it comes from 14 years ago. So I'm going to have to get clarification on this. I stand corrected. Pretty neat, chat. Yeah, real life disclosure happening in real time by your 4Orbeez buddy, Ashton Forbes. Pretty exciting. So I want to make sure that this isn't a situation where I'm being, misled related to this here. Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to have to assume that it's possible that I could be misled, but no, this is definitely must be that image must come from this.
Look, this is really, really bad. Ashton has been completely busted. This is devastating, point of no return type exposing. But Grifter's got a grift, right? He pretends he was not aware of the previous device and that he was misled. So misled by who? He's never even seen the device he's claiming to be selling? He's already sold 30, he said. He never saw those either, so he's overflowing with confidence about this super awesome free energy device he's never even seen. Who's making them? Why are they cutting him in on this $1 trillion idea without even showing him the device? Or is this just a pathetic Hail Mary play after getting his grift completely exposed? That's a rhetorical question. I know that you all know the answer. So what's the fallout been after this? Ashton has been desperate to rebuild some credibility after the whole free energy device dropshipping scam, and his move was to just try to befriend other grifters and have them on his show. First up, Avi Loeb, the Harvard astrophysicist turned crackpot who has been cashing in on baseless stories to sell pop-sci books, the most famous of which involves the claim that the comet Oumuamua is an alien spacecraft. He's peddled some other similar stories since then, which have prompted quite a bit of pushback pushback from the astrophysics community, but we don't have to get into the details. Perhaps I'll do a separate video on Loeb if enough people are interested in seeing what a fraud he's become. But for our purposes here, Ashton clearly just wants Loeb to greenlight some aspect of his bullshit. Something. Anything.
This is called the Casimir effect, and it has to do with a vacuum. But it doesn't allow us to propel anything. This technology was never attempted, as far as I know. He would have gotten a
What if
Nobel
they just
Prize
don't care
if he
about
could.
Nobel Prizes? It's a scary thought, right? But
It's not a scary thought, but I don't think, I think we would learn about it because somewhere, sometime there would be a leak. There is nothing really magical about the plasma in terms of propulsion. The way I think of it is, if there is a system that has some novel propulsion abilities as a result of some unusual engine of a technology we don't possess, then there might be a plasma around as a consequence of that engine moving the object, but that's not the essence.
As you can see, Loeb is only comfortable with level 1 crackpottery. He needs his bullshit to be academia adjacent in order to retain a shred of credibility. No egregious misrepresentations of scientific principles, just a dishonest bending of the truth. So he's not going to give Ashton what he wants here. And when Avi Loeb rejects your conspiracy theories, you know you're not in good shape. Anyway, I think that's more or less all that needs to be said about Ashton Forbes. He's a complete putz of a grifter who spews word salad about negative energy plasma orbs that flies in the face of basic physics knowledge. He doesn't know the definitions of most of the words he uses, even basic concepts like what magnetic fields are. It's also not an original grift. Everything is cobbled together from plasma cosmology, electric universe, cold fusion conspiracies, and more. And as always, it's the anti-establishment narrative that ties it all together. Check out my super awesome secret truth that the scientists and the government don't want you to know. It's infantile. Physicists want to understand the universe. They want to discover aliens. They want to develop clean energy. They want to know more about dark matter and dark energy. And they certainly want to uncover technological applications that are derived from new knowledge. But innovating new science is hard. Frauds like Ashton don't know the first thing about what it takes to do scientific research, and he never will. That's why he has to turn to things like free energy device scams that blow up right in his dumb face. That anyone would still follow this tool after a stunt like that requires that people don't even know that these things have happened. And that's why I cover them, to shine a spotlight on the facts and take a chunk out of his following. And maybe to start a little drama, right? Ashton, I know you're watching since you're such a narcissistic little wiener. Don't forget to whine about me in a bunch of tweets and send your army of brainwashed followers to attack me. Just make sure they don't actually watch this video, though. We wouldn't want them learning about what a fraud you really are. And of course, you wouldn't want to turn this into an extended back and forth where after an initial relatively mild video, I just end up pummeling you into oblivion. Take a bit of advice from James Tour, or Sabur Ahmad, or Discovery Institute. Or don't. Poke the hornet's nest and see what happens. So that's it for Ashton Forbes, the loser fraud who tried to get rich off of sci-fi stories, but had it all blow up in his face due to extreme incompetence. Shall we tackle some other frauds in this genre while we're at it? I'm thinking I might just do that, so let me know if you have anyone specific in mind. Until next time.